Hey guys, how's it going? This is Danconia. Welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup 2020 Week 9 results. So, what a week it's been in the Overwatch League, and I'm telling you now, I couldn't have predicted that meta. I really couldn't have. The meta preview, or the meta preview for Week 10 is going to be really interesting, because we get to look back on the meta we've seen this week. And, if you're a TORB fan, it's been a good week. It's been a really good week. I really didn't see that one coming. But we have a bunch of results to go through, 10 as per usual, as the format is now for the Overwatch League. And if you wanted to recap, the heroes banned this week were May, McCree, the Wrecking Ball, and the Brigitte. So things really did change up. But first of all, we saw Toronto Defiant taking on the Washington Justice. And this meta, or hero pool selection, whatever you want to call it, really did fall into the ballpark of the Toronto Defiant, because Sombra was back, and they could also play the Winston, and Toronto have had a lot of success in the past on the Hackfist, the Doomfist, Sombra dive, and it was evident here with Toronto Defiant getting a 3-1 win over the Washington Justice, and I'm telling you now, actually, Toronto Defiant looked pretty darn good in this match. It wasn't a Papega fest, it wasn't an awful display, but Washington Justice, it's been a bad week for Washington. It's been actually probably the most disappointing week I've seen from Washington so far. Their ult usage has been really peculiar this week. It's been all over the place. Maybe it's because the meta has not favoured the pop-offs that Corey and Stratus like, but it's not been a good week for Justice fans, and this loss is bad for the Justice. It's not a good look. But moving on, and after that, we saw the Los Angeles Gladiators taking on the Dallas Fuel. So this was the return of the Fuel, and if you want to recap from the Fuel from Week 1, they've got some impressive parts, especially their DPS line, Doha and Decay, are very good, but the Fuel, again, were lacking in Week 1, and here they are outclassed by a very good Gladiators side. Gladiators, I think they're going to be that leading, one of the leading teams in that chasing pack for the top spots, right? You've got some teams that really look good right now. Seoul Dynasty, Philadelphia Fusion, for example. New York Excelsior, I haven't seen for a while, but they've looked good. Vancouver Titans, they've looked good in their early impressions in week 1. We will see Vancouver next week, and they will have more information on that. But the Gladiators, they don't look like they're quite up there with those teams, but they are able to dispatch teams like the Dallas Fuel pretty efficiently. So I am impressed with the Gladiators this week, and I think they're going to be challenging for those playoff spots. Dallas Fuel, yeah, it was a bridge too far for their DPS to carry. And I hate saying that, but really their DPS line stands out so much compared to the rest of the team. It really does. And it's, to be quite honest, the rest of the team could do alright, and it just seems to never come together for the Dallas Fuel. It's really weird. But moving on, and we had the Los Angeles Valiant taking on the San Francisco Shock. This was a rematch from last week, where the Los Angeles Valiant got a surprise 3-1 win over the Shock. This week, however, is different. I think the Shock are very thankful that they can play the Lucio again, able to get their Super and Choi Hyobin tank line into the battle much quicker, and therefore it plays to the Shock's strengths. No matter what DPS they're on, we saw ANS or ANS on the Torbjorn, but we also saw Rascal on the Torbjorn, and Rascal's Torbjorn, boy oh boy, it's something to behold. I have got 2 people competing for best Torbjorn this week, and Rascal is one of them. But Shock will get a 3-1 win here, and I am not too surprised. The hero pools have really favoured Shock this week. It didn't favour them last week. We have found a weakness in this Shock side, though. If they can't play the Lucio, they really like playing their Rein Zarya or Rein Diva, and it really does affect them. So a weakness in the Shock has been found, but Valiant, they gave a good account of themselves. I'm by no means disappointed in the Valiant in this display. The Shock are a very good team. Valiant, I think they will be okay this season. I think they will be okay. But the Chinese games got moved, if you didn't know. There was a Memoriam Day in China for the people who have lost their lives to the coronavirus. So the Chinese games were moved a day later. So this is where the Chinese teams come in, and we see Shanghai Dragons take on the Hangzhou Spark. I was quite disappointed in Shanghai last week. I have rated Shanghai very highly alongside other people who have rated Shanghai really highly. And they were good and then bad last week. So they're going up against the Hangzhou Spark. Hangzhou Spark were the best Chinese team last year, but they haven't looked quite up to scratch so far this year. And Shanghai Dragons get a 3-0 win over the Hangzhou Spark. This is what I expect the Shanghai Dragons to be doing. I think the Shanghai Dragons are a very, very good team, and this week they have really demonstrated that. I still think there are a lot of rough edges with this Dragons team though, so I don't think they are a team that again is right up there with the Souls, Philadelphia's, New York's of this world, Vancouver. I think they are a team that is going to compete around with the Gladiators and stuff like that, which is still a really good place to be. I was really impressed with Li Shaegon in this match as well. He was really, really good. But moving on after that, we have the Chengdu Hunters taking on the Guangzhou Charge. So the big test of the Chengdu Hunters this week was, well, you've got no Wrecking Ball, so what's a Meng gonna do? So they were decent this week, but it's been a bad week for the Hunters. It has been a bad week for the Hunters. The Charge are just one of those teams. They're a 5-map team that can upset some of the good teams in the league, just like they were last season pretty much. The Charge haven't changed too much, in my opinion. They are a middle of the league sort of team that can upset the big boys from time to time, but do go to a lot of map 5s, so won't have a brilliant differential at the end of the campaign. That's kind of the way I see Guangzhou Charge at the moment. But they do get a 3-2 win over the Chengdu Hunters, and Hunters, they were experimenting with stuff. We saw 18 at times, a lot during this Charge match, I believe. But we also have seen something this week which we have never seen in the Overwatch League, and that is the Meng Winston. He does not play Winston at a professional level, really, at all, and it shows. It really does show. He was probably the worst Winston in the league this week. He's not the worst main tank though, because he has still got a really good Rhine and a really good Orisa, so no, props to Meng for that, but he did miss his Wrecking Ball. And I think Chengdu Hunters missed their Wrecking Ball this week. But good win for the Guangzhou Charge. Moving on, and we had the Houston Outlaws in action for the first time in a while against the Paris Eternal, who we hadn't seen in a while. And this was a test of the Paris Eternal a lot more as well, because the Paris Eternal, if you didn't know and didn't see the transfer roundup, Hip has retired, who was a very crucial part of this Eternal side in the support slot. So I believe Hip has actually got Team of the Week one of these weeks. So yeah, he's retired, and it was interesting to see what Paris Eternal would do. They brought in Gray, he had a very good display, and Paris Eternal get a 3-1 win over the Houston Outlaws. Now remember, on the flip side, back a couple of weeks, this actually went 3-0 to the Outlaws. So this is good for the Paris Eternal, but I think, again, this is a heavily hero pool dependent. Paris Eternal were able to run the comps that they wanted to run without having the problem of Reinhardt being banned, which I believe when Houston won 3-0, Reinhardt was banned, and it was a more divey sort of meta, which really favours Houston Outlaws. So, good win for the Paris Eternal, and it's kind of like a win that gets the Eternal back on track. They are one of those teams that are going to be fighting up there alongside the Gladiators and the Dragons, I believe. Houston, they're not as bad as I thought early on, but they're still not brilliant. I think hero pools will make them look very good at times, but consistency-wise, it isn't going to be there for the Outlaws, I don't think. So, it's been an okay week for the Outlaws. They were up against a very good team, but it does tell us kind of where they are. Moving on now, we saw the Philadelphia Fusion taking on the Washington Justice. I told you it was a bad week for the Justice, and this is a 3-0 win for the Philadelphia Fusion. Justice, again, looked all over the place, but you know, I said there was 2 people competing for Best Torbjorn this week. One of them was obviously Rascal of the San Francisco Shock. The other is Carpe. Carpe's Torbjorn. Who'd have thought? I mean, we know Carpe's brilliant on the Widow and the McCree and the likes, but here's Torbjorn. It's good. I want to see more Carpe Torbjorn. I was really impressed with Carpe this week. So much so that he might be in another video coming in the next couple of days. But he was really good on the TORB on Carpe. Again, we saw Hisu for the first time as well, who was actually had a really good display as well. Nothing flash or outstanding, I wouldn't say, from Hisu, but a very good display against a side, well, Washington Justice, who just, they were terrible this week. I think Hero Pools have really affected Washington Justice this week. But yeah, the bottom of the league, in my opinion, is starting to shape up slightly now. But next up, we have the Dallas Fuel in action again against the Los Angeles Valiant. Now, this is disappointing from the Valiant. I would have thought a team who we've seen actually quite a considerable amount of quality from this season, surprisingly, in the Valiant, would get a win over the Dallas Fuel, and they don't. Dallas Fuel get on the board this season with a 3-2 win over the Los Angeles Valiant. And this is interesting because it was definitely, I mean, Dallas Fuel would not have won this match if it wasn't for Decay. That's without a doubt. They would have probably been quite heavily defeated if it wasn't for Decay. They didn't play what you would say is meta. Valiant did. Valiant played the double shotgun a lot of the time, the Reaper Torbjorn, if that's what double shotgun is. Torbjorn very good at shutting down the Sombra and the Tracer. Chengdu, the Dallas Fuel decide to run the Tracer. It works, because Decay is just that darn good. And that's what sees Dallas Fuel through here. But they are not going to be able to rely on the DPS line for this entire campaign, and I think it's disappointing from the Valiant more than anything else. Both teams weren't good in this match. I'm not going to lie. Both teams weren't good in this match. But Fuel, this might be a springboard for them in terms of confidence where they can push on and now give us some better displays. I think the Fuel have potential. Definitely they have potential. It's just we need to see it. We just need to see it. And there's certainly, we're seeing it from the DPS, but no one else at the moment. Gamsu, again, he had his ups and he had his very, very big downs. So it's so difficult to tell with the Fuel at the moment. Moving on now, and we're back to China. The last two games, Chengdu Hunters taking on the Shanghai Dragons. This was a 3-1 win for the Shanghai Dragons. I've had some of my faith restored in the Shanghai Dragons this week. This is what I was expecting the Shanghai Dragons to do last week, and they didn't do it. Chengdu Hunters, there was some good individual plays, but positioning at times for the Hunters was all over the place. I mean, we know it's chaotic when the Hunters are playing, but when you see your Zenyatta behind the enemy team on Volskaya, I mean, literally, he's at the choke in Volskaya while everyone is fighting on the point, and they just close him down and remove him from the game, and it's just a bit weird. It's just a bit weird. Chengdu Hunters a bit all over the place this week. Shanghai Dragons definitely took advantage of that, but Shanghai Dragons have been better this week compared to their first week of competition in week 8, and I'd expect the Dragons to push on from here, but they are going to have some tougher tests coming down the road. Vancouver Titans are in Korea. I believe Seoul are actually going back to Korea now as well. London, who knows what's going on with that team. I mean, apparently in Korea, but not playing at the moment. So there are some tougher tests down the road for Shanghai Dragons, and we'll see how they come out of that one. But lastly, we had a rematch between Guangzhou Charge and Hangzhou Spark. We saw this last week. I believe it was a 3-2 to the Charge last week. And again, the merry-go-round in China continues, with Hangzhou Spark getting a 3-2 win over the Guangzhou Charge. It is so hard to know where to put these teams at the moment, because these Chinese teams, they're just beating each other all the time. It's really, really weird. I mean, last week we were like saying, well, Chengdu Hunters is the best team coming out of China at the moment. Now we're saying, are they the worst team coming out of China at the moment? And that probably means that hero pools are having a massive effect on what's going on. But Hangzhou Spark, Guangzhou Charge, I'm looking at them as mid-table teams right now. That's what I would be saying at this current point. Shanghai Dragons up there with the better teams. Chengdu Hunters, difficult to tell right now. Difficult to tell. I think it will heavily depend on the week and the hero pools on whether Chengdu Hunters get results or not. But those are the results from week 9. Week 10 will be very interesting with the return of the Vancouver Titans. And the week 10 hero pool is going to be interesting because finally, it's been a long time coming, but D.Va has been banned alongside Ana, Reaper and Sombra. So it'll be interesting to see what some teams do with no D.Va available. Again, this hurts Chengdu. This hurts Chengdu badly because, well, they want D.Va because they want to play Wrecking Ball D.Va. They want to play Dive. So if they're going to play Dive, they're going to have to play Winston Wrecking Ball. And it's possible if they play Aiting and Ameng together. But, be interesting to see what they come out with next week. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you'd like to give a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you next.